Hey guys, so today on a very special episode of Off the Cuff, we have an old friend here,
I'm
Mr.
back.
Grayson Thompson, who is visiting for the best day of the year, my birthday, and we want to get on a quick video with you guys and discuss some stuff and hopefully drop some knowledge on you and share some value. And Grayson, of course, has stayed in the loop in the months since he's moved from New York to Nashville,
That's right. Nashville,
and
Tennessee.
he's down in Nashville, Tennessee. So shout out to those women that do that podcast down there, the 10 and 2 podcast.
10
10
and
and
2.
2, yeah.
10 time. Mm-hmm.
Is it them? Did they
10
change?
time, yeah.
Nice, nice. So yeah, so he's here for the week, and we're very lucky to have him. We won't be doing this every day, but we just wanted to get a quick video in there. And Grayson recently did some trades.
That's right.
As he is valued, not only a valued contributor to this channel when he can, but also a valued client. And he did some trades for some stuff that he had. So that kind of brought us up with the idea of, hey, what's the trading process like here at Taylor Timepieces? Is it worth trading your watch? As a lot of avid watch enthusiasts know, in the last couple months and the coming couple months, if I'm being very honest, the watch market is taking a little bit of a dip. I mean, listen,
Sure.
watches are still going strong, but personally, at Taylor Timepieces, we try to be as honest as we can. We have found that many people are opting to trade their watches in, as opposed to buying watches with cash. And I think that's because, like I said, it is an election year this year, and we are not going to be sharing who we're voting for, unfortunately, unless you want to send us a message in the comments. Because we don't want to be demonetized by our great leader, Mr. YouTube.
Keep it, yeah.
And let's keep it PG about watches,
Timepieces.
and yeah. So if we want to talk about Hublot and how much it sucks, that's okay. But the president, is unfortunately
Stay out of politics.
Yeah. So with that in mind, we have been getting a lot more trades in recent months than I think ever before. I think a lot of that is because of the current market, and a lot of people don't want to spend the dollars. And some of that is too just a novelty of trades. The idea that you might have had an Omega or a Tudor or a Breitling, and you were able to trade up to maybe an entry level Rolex, or trade maybe a couple pieces in your inventory. I don't know if I shared this with you, but back in around January, we had a gentleman who basically gave us in maybe 6, 7, 8 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I got 3 sons and they all want sports model Rolexes. And we've been on the list since, they're 3, 5 years old, and now they're, 14 and 16. And I don't know what I'm getting at Daytona, so work with me a little bit here. So he had, some beautiful Omega watches, a couple, entry level Rolexes, and we did work with him. So, as someone who recently went through the process of trades, was that something that you found to be comfortable to you and really added value to your experience here, or do you find that you got more joy off of really saving up and waiting for that next piece?
Look, I think both are a great way to go about building your collection, but as you're going about building your watch collection and evolving and hopefully upgrading and building upon your style, those are the two avenues in terms of acquiring watches. What's wonderful about watches and why we love the hobby and the business so much is that they retain value.
Yeah.
And so when you build a strong relationship with a gray market dealer like Taylor Timepieces, instead of acquiring a new watch, you can say, hey, look, this watch that maybe I thought I would enjoy, that I'm not wearing as much as I thought I would, or I purchased another watch that is getting most of my wrist time, and this is kind of collecting dust in the watch box. All of a sudden, you can refresh your collection with something else that's going to get wrist time without spending the full sticker price
Yeah.
of a new watch and instead exchange a watch that someone else will really enjoy and value
Yeah.
and be able to experience something new. And so as you're growing and building your collection, it's a wonderful means of being able to get into something different. And when you build a strong long-term relationship with the dealer, then you start to be able to do that and build that more frequently and experience more of the watch world to then eventually refine your taste and focus on, you know, higher end pieces ultimately.
Yeah, yeah, and one thing that I find, and that's something we discussed in my solo video where I talked about trades a little bit, is a lot of people, not only in this industry but in the world, have this shiny object syndrome, where it's, hey, as long as I don't have to put up money for this thing, like, I'll take it. So you get a lot of guys who, when they're trading stuff in, maybe the guy they're trading with is more willing to value their watch maybe a little bit higher. I can tell you, like, from personal experiences, as we go, I always say to my clients, if you can trade a watch in, that's going to be much more beneficial to you than basically selling me your watch, because if you trade a watch in, we get to move a piece out of inventory as well. And usually it's, we're trading something in for, something that you have, maybe you want to trade up, or maybe sometimes you want to trade down. We get a lot of guys too that maybe they get these Rolexes at retail because they are those lucky few, and they say, hey, I got this Batman at retail, $14,000-$15,000, but
Sure.
I know you're going to value it closer to 18 because you guys are dealing in the secondary market. So in that regard, working in the secondary market is not always a bad thing. You get a lot of guys who get stuff at retail. Recently we had even those white Speedmasters that we did a video on last week. I get guys that are coming in and saying, hey, I got the option to get one at retail. What's your trade value in? And for something like that, currently as of this video, it's about $9,000 to trade that in. So if you get that thing retail at six and change, about $7,100, after taxes and fees, trading it into someone like me for 9 or even 10, depending on where you're at, is it just better. You got more watch for the money.
Yeah.
And
Look, the other thing you can do with trade-ins is think everyone who's getting into the watch game, so to speak, or getting interested in mechanical timepieces, you start buying a lot, right? Because you think that's part of the hobby. You end up with a lot of watches that ultimately aren't your style, or you buy
Yeah.
8 Seikos and lower end watches when what you really want is that Omega or that Rolex
Yeah.
or a higher end piece. And so, can you consolidate some of those watches that you've picked up? Can you consolidate a Tudor and an Omega and a couple of Seikos into that Grail Daytona that you want? Potentially, or towards the value of it.
Yeah.
And then really you're focusing your collection in terms of the ultimate aspiration. And so instead of trying to sell it yourself in an unprofessional way or getting caught on forums and with no dealer reputation, just as an enthusiast, go through a gray market dealer who can get you authenticated pieces, give you the best deal for your watches, and have you be your shepherd through your watch collecting journey.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really valuable, because you get all these guys who, like Grayson said, you get 5, 10, 15 watches, and it's not like a store where you can return stuff. And
That's right.
Hey, I've had this piece for 30 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, especially if you're new in the watch industry. You don't really know what you like. And so to be able to trade is nice. And usually you're trading with people that are knowledgeable. So most times they're very fair on the valuation. The people who do the trades, it's not like if it's a purchase. I find that if I'm working with someone to sell them a watch, maybe it's their first watch, if you're trading a watch with somebody else, most times, I would say maybe 8 out of 10 times, that watch trader that you're trading with, so your trade partner, it's not their first watch. They know how it works. They know that the trust and the process that goes into working a lot with watches and trading watches, and that's not something you necessarily get from your first time watch buyer who is just trying to get the watch in most cases. as cheaply as they can, because they might not know what the item is, they might not know its true value, and as Grayson said, there's so many avenues that this could go wrong if you do this incorrectly. So be able to
Or you
trade
can
with
lose a lot of money,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It ends up being very expensive if you're not doing it in an intentional way.
yeah. So we talked about trading and how to do it successfully. Um, what are some areas and some spots that you found, through your journey besides working with a dealer? Because I understand, that's not everyone's jive, or maybe they don't know how to connect with someone like me. Um, what are some? I know Reddit is a really big thing.
For me, when I started getting into watches in college on a more limited budget, it was eBay and Reddit,
Yeah,
really. And I would go through more inexpensive vintage pieces and dress pieces where there is a lot of value for sure to start your collection. Vintage Wittnauers and Longines, and I still actually have a vintage Omega Seamaster from 1957, which is
yeah,
an amazing condition, which I'll never sell. And then you get into your Seiko dive watches and the sport watches, right? But when ultimately you find that that's a watch that's not a keeper in your collection, that you're
yeah,
not in love with anymore, you don't really, it wasn't what you expected when you purchased it, then all of a sudden you have to sell it back on eBay or sell it back on the watch forums. And in that case, you're losing quite a bit of money and value, right?
yeah,
And so, working directly with a gray market dealer is going to be your best bet to be able to actually, you know, execute these transactions without losing as much money as you would on the forums yourself, and also to be able to, have access to a lot of pieces in quick succession.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that when you trade with someone who maybe is not the most avid watch collector, you're choosing between the two of the worst evils. So, and that's something too. When we'll make a video shortly, sometime probably in the next couple of weeks, about how to properly choose your collection. Because I see so many people who are, I don't say, listen, watches are a personal choice, and picking a watch is a personal choice. But I see so many people that are choosing the wrong watches when it comes
Yeah.
to long term value. So that's something that we definitely advocate for, is picking the right stuff. Grayson said that he, really picked out some vintage pieces, in college, and when he first got into it, and I think if you're gonna go on the lower end, that vintage market is the way to go when it goes to trading.
Sure.
Because the worst thing is, listen, we work with everyone on a lot of pieces, but you'd be surprised how many people will come to us and say, hey, I have 10 G-Shocks, can I get an Omega? Or hey,
Doesn't quite work like that.
and
Yeah.
listen, yeah, it doesn't quite work
Right.
like that. So if you're gonna go smaller, on the smaller end, I always recommend, like, find something vintage or find something unique or interesting,
Yeah.
that isn't super available. And also, as a trade partner, you want to find something that um, is safe and clean. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's, when you're buying watches, pick what you like, but make sure that if you're keeping, keep a trade in mind. So we always say, listen, if you're gonna get something, try and make sure it has box and papers. Try to make sure it's got, if it's not something that's common as far as the brand goes, what does it have that other brands don't? So, you have, like we were talking the other day about the Cartier lookalike, the what's that? Not the Crash, the Salvador Dali.
Mm-hmm.
So the Salvador Dali, in my opinion, is like a piece that, okay, if you're not yet at the Cartier Crash level, let's pick something like that up. So I always try to pick stuff up that, when you're talking about Seiko 5s and other stuff like that, stuff that'll retain its value for the most part. And I find Reddit to be, a really beneficial, area to do stuff like that, especially in the smaller end. And we always say, listen, if we don't have something, or if we can't satisfy, your trade preferences, trade with someone on those platforms, and then come back to us with a piece that is maybe more a mainstream piece. Because I get a lot of people that are like, oh, I have a bunch of Hamilton khakis, and it's maybe not something we use, but who does like those pieces? maybe someone on Reddit, maybe somebody on these Watch You Seek forums, maybe someone on these Facebook forums. So keeping that in mind, I think is very important to to keep the area that you're trading in mind. Of course, when you are trading, there are practices and things that you should really look out for. I know that. So like when you're trading with someone who's not a dealer, make sure that they have social media, things like that. You get a hold of them.
And references,
Yeah,
too.
references.
There are plenty of people that are looking to scam
Yeah,
non-dealers on forums. And so forums can be a wonderful place to exchange watches, but you have to do your diligence, right? And there have been better practices put in place today with a site like Reddit, for instance, than there used to be when I was in college.
Yeah.
Right? With the reference system that didn't used to exist. But do your diligence, right? You have to be careful. But the best way to go about ultimately is finding a reputable, trusted gray dealer.
yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, what other things, as far as, you recently did this process, if you want to talk about the watch that you traded.
That's right. Maybe we should do a wristwatch check,
Yeah.
which kind of led us to the topic of this video. I traded in a Datejust for something that's a little bit more unique
Yeah.
and rare, right? So we talk about value retention. Often you talk about the big brands, but sometimes it's about scarcity.
Yeah.
And so I went from something mainstream, a Rolex Datejust, into what I'm wearing today, which is an H. Moser Pioneer Center Seconds. And I'll show it for the camera today with this beautiful Blue Lagoon dial.
Yeah.
And it's just such a unique, beautiful piece, right?
Yeah.
H. Moser is one of those brands, an independent Swiss brand with heritage, with technology, with a little bit of flair in some of their marketing. And but really what it is a focused manufacturer that will only make 2,000 to 3,000 watches per year. Rolex is out there, was just released this week. They make 1.2 million watches per year. So
Yeah.
you're gonna see 100 people on the street on any given day in Manhattan wearing a Rolex Submariner or a Datejust.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna see a Moser on the street. Maybe in that smoky cocktail bar, or maybe
Yeah.
with a true watch enthusiast or at a watch forum, but you're not gonna see a Moser on the street.
And it's one of the things too that when we talk about trades, people aren't going to offer you a Moser unless you're in a Moser boutique. If you have that rare ability to be in a Moser boutique. I don't even know if there are any around here that are.
There's one in New York City, but I think that's about it.
Yeah.
At least here in town, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, for us, when it comes to trades, it's like this might not have been a watch that Grayson would pick up, or this might not have been a watch that he would have seen,
That I would have come
yeah,
across,
that you
right.
would have come across, but to come into the shop, which a little selfless plug, we opened up a shop on Pearl Street in Brooklyn. So if you guys want to go to Dumbo, Brooklyn, that's where our shop is, and it's something to have someone come into the shop and just say, hey, I have this. The dealer down the street's gonna offer me $6,000-$7,000 for this Datejust. What do you want to offer me? And like I said, you come into us with a trade, I'm happy to give you a little bit more because I know that, hey, I'm still moving a piece.
That's right.
And you sacrifice maybe a little bit of margin on the piece that you're selling, but you refresh your inventory too as a dealer, and you say, hey, listen,
That's right.
at the end of the day, we were happy to take that Datejust in because at the end of the day, it is a Datejust and it is a popular piece.
That's right.
And Grayson knew that. Grayson knew that, hey, if I'm going to come in with a trade, the way I get the best value for my money is having a popular piece that a lot of people are really going to enjoy.
Exactly.
If he would have came in and maybe he had, I don't know, something, a Breitling Galactic or something, maybe.
Right, some niche.
Yeah, something a
Ulysse
little bit
Nardin
niche.
or something.
Yeah,
right.
you get these guys, because I'll get guys all the time that'll come in and be like, well, retail on this UN is, $15,000, and the trade price is only 7 or 8. And my mindset is, listen, we understand, but when you're coming at a trade, you got to come at it proper, and you have to say, listen, if same piece, if he was going to trade this piece in, it is a piece that you don't see very often.
That's right.
So it's more so setting those expectations as a client, and kind of knowing, hey, listen, like these dealers will take your watches, but you need to have the proper expectations set in place to make sure that, first of all, you get a fair value. But I think people misunderstand that a fair value is not always top value.
Well, you're not going to get a top retail sale value, but if you work and you build a relationship with
Yeah.
a dealer, they're going to give you a fair price that's closer to what their cost is or would be in the wholesale market,
Yeah.
and optimize for a relationship, right? And so if you've bought a number of pieces, I don't know how many I've bought and trade from you, right?
I would say we're coming up on the double digits at this point.
A dozen plus, right? When you build that long-term relationship over a number of years, then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you can get into something that's unique and rare, like a Moser.
And that's also not something that, if you notice, on a purchase, I don't think that's an option that you're afforded. If I like you, I'm going to give you as much of a trade value as I can. We have a good relationship. But if you're buying something, 9 times out of 10, the price is the price.
That's right.
I can't walk into a Rolex dealership and say, hey, we're good friends. I sent you a Christmas card. I know you're asking 10 grand for that watch. Would you take $8,500 today?
Doesn't work like that.
But I can't tell you how many times that I'm working with a guy and he wants, I did it today. He wanted, listen, I hope nobody buys a Breitling that sees this video, buys this Breitling from me. But he wanted $3,000 and I wanted to be at $2,500 for this Breitling because I know, listen, we got to service it, we got a team to pay to market the piece, we got to photograph the piece. And because he's a guy who comes in very often, he's very polite, he's very proper. He had a bunch of pieces. He had a couple pieces that he liked from us that he wanted to trade in. We had one of them was a Bell and Ross. We were able to get to 2,800 for him, and I was very happy to do that, because we'll still be able to make a little bit of something on the piece. But if he were to come in and just buy that piece, we wouldn't have that level of room. I wouldn't have $300 of margin, $600 of margin. Sometimes on a trade, you have even as much as $1,000 of margin when it comes to either way, because that dealer that you're working with is oftentimes building in a little bit of profit on the piece, so they know, okay, if I have a couple $100 up or down, it's still gonna make sense. And I find that that's the best way to connect with those dealers is basically coming to them and basically showing them stuff that they want to see, and making that connection, because
That's right.
I think so many people, especially in the watch industry, why we started this, at least why I started this, was because I felt that there wasn't a lot of personality to the watch industry. A lot of it was, hey, here's your Moser, here's your Rolex.
It's very transactional. Right.
Bother me in 3 months. So I think, allowing for trades is definitely something that, becomes a little bit more personal, because I get to see what my clients like. It also helps from a sales perspective. If I'm getting a lot of Omegas and Breitlings on trade, guess who should be maybe stocking a little bit more Omegas and Breitlings, because all these clients have them. Or if
That's
get a bunch of watches, maybe they're all looking for a Moser. If I got 4 guys that are looking for this Moser Mega Cool, it's called.
That's right.
Then I know, okay, that's what the clients like. So it helps a lot for me as a dealer to know what the clients are buying, then also what the clients are tired of. You see a lot of times if they're trading stuff in, it could be because they like the piece, but oftentimes it might be because
It's losing interest.
it's losing interest. So if I get 20 guys that are trading in the Mad One the MB&F ones that came in, maybe MB&F, maybe they're getting tired of that watch. So
Right. The novelty is worn off.
The novelty is worn off. So the opposite can be true, and that helps a lot with market research as a bunch of dealers. So yeah, those were just a couple thoughts that I had on trading, and Grayson was gracious enough to share his experience with you guys on his experience of trading, and we hope to continue to offer that service to our valued clients in the coming years, and we appreciate your time in watching this video, and hopefully give it a like and a comment, and let us know what to cover next.